and hopefully everyone is doing wonderful today. What I have behind me is what we call the 5 principles of law. And what I want to try my best to do today is explain again why I say that the law is a safeguard, right? And that the law is there not only to protect us, but it's there to guide us and also bring us closer to the Most High, right? Bring us closer to the Most High. But most of all, people that believe that the law is done away with, you know, they have accepted or adopted this ideology from religion, and most of them will never see this. Now, again, this is to show, right? Again, if it's possible for those that never seen this before, right? Or probably have heard of it, but nobody have really, again, explained it. And not that my explanation is perfect and that I know everything, right? I'm still growing and still learning. But anyway, this should simplify it, right? To make sense, to get us to understand the seriousness of why the law is there, you know. Again, like I said, as a safeguard. Now, again, there are going to be those that you know are going to disagree with this and not want to hear it. That's fine, you know. But for those again that have never seen this before, heard this before, even have not connected the dots, like I said, hopefully this makes sense to you, right? Now, again, I have the 5 principles of law, and they're really not in any particular order. Well, we'll say judgment, right? Judgment will be like the final outcome, the final decision, right? For the breach of this contract or disobeying these rules, right? Let me put this right here. Let me just say, let me do that. Put that right there. Anyway, we have the dietary law, the ceremonial law, the moral law, sacrificial law, or offering as well, in judgment. And like I said, it's really not any particular order except for the judgment will be the final, you know, final verdict, right? All praise the Most High. All praise the Most High. Like I said, as I go through this, I begin to see other things, right? Again, you begin to see things a little clearer, right? Like I said, there's going to be things that I probably miss, and someone may see some things that need to be changed or, you know, added or corrected or what have you. But again, we're all learning, right? Anyway, and the beautiful thing about this is, in many aspects, these things complement each other. When you see it, man, oh man, oh praise the Most High. They complement each other. And I know there's going to be people that say, well, the law's done away with again, because they're going to just look at the sacrifice, you know, but the sacrificial law. But we're supposed to be a living sacrifice, so that kills that ideology right there, right? But again, I'm going to show you as best as possible how these things are intertwined, or how they're connected, but yet they still have their own, you know, they serve their own purpose. For example, the dietary law, right? Let me start off there for a second. The dietary law. We know that that's what we can and we cannot be eaten, right? Right? The things that are clean and unclean. and how these things are connected. Because when we look at the sacrificial law, we would not sacrifice any unclean animals to the Most High. We just wouldn't, right? Which again goes back to the point. That's why we're supposed to be clean. We're supposed to be presenting ourselves as a living sacrifice, and we're supposed to be clean within that. But if we're eating things that are defiled, and I know people say, "Well, I just pray over it," but then that brings up the question, especially my people that struggle with, sickness, which again, these things bring us back to sin, right? Sickness, high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes. A lot of these things are connected, right, to what we eat. The things that we eat affect our body, affect our temple. And we don't want to present ourselves to the Most High being sick, because we're supposed to be without blemish. And if we have a blemish, it brings us back to sin. I mean, this is just a concept, the mindset. When you begin to say all these things, it begin to make more sense. And then when you look at our community, we lead in a lot of these diseases, a lot of these ailments. Oh man. I mean, religion has really done our people in, and they really just don't want to see it, man. And they want to hold on to that religion instead of just coming out of it, and letting the word guide them. Let the Ruach of the Most High guide them where they can see these things. But anyway, again, with that being said, because people like to say, well, that's that Mosaic law. It's not Moses' law, because we can even go to, I want to say, the book of Genesis, right? We can go to the so-called Old Testament and go all the way to the beginning and see how the forefather Noah, he brought the animals on the ark, the unclean by 2 and the clean by 7. So again, this shows that the law was there from the beginning. And now people want to change it because they really don't want to do anything. They just think it's a whole nother discussion within itself. There's a whole nother discussion within itself. But anyway, like I said, let's move forward. The ceremonial law. It's just not a day of worship, right? This is a day where you would meet with the Most High, right? You would meet with Him. I'm gonna have to do a lesson if it's the Most High will and show the marriage. But anyway, but it's the day that we meet with the Most High, or like a court date, right? If you have a court date, right? Again, I'm all these things that are just coming into my head when you start seeing this stuff, all this stuff is really practical. We do this in our everyday life, but people would dismiss it because again, they just don't want to be held accountable. But anyway, moving forward. But not only a court date, but you have to go to the doctor for an appointment. You have an appointed time. You don't show up when you want to show up. You're supposed to show up. You're supposed to show up at your scheduled time. And when you go to the doctor, right? When you go to court, you're supposed to present something to them, to the court or to the doctor, right? And that's an offering, a sacrifice, a payment. Like I said, it just laid itself right there in front of me just now. I didn't even see this until I really sit back and start looking at this. I mean, this is when you begin to see this through the Ruach, through the Spirit, these things become more and more and more practical. But anyway, let's moving forward. But like I say, so in the ceremony, right? In this, with the ceremonial law, right? Going to meet the Most High at this day, at this particular time, right? Another thing that should be, well, that became obvious to me, from my experience. I grew up Catholic, and I remember going to a funeral for a loved one, and this when I first got into what we call the truth. I remember seeing how the priests would take this thing and sprinkle water on the people, and they would walk also down the aisle with this incense holder, what have you, and they would go through the aisle and they would spread the incense or the smoke, throughout the church. And again, these are principles that you can read in the Bible. But when these people tell you that the laws are no way with, but yet they're using some of the same rituals or practices, because again, that's what it is, a day of worship and sacred rituals. Again, like I said, acting like they're the priests. But anyway, like I said, just sit here thinking about some of these things that become very, very familiar when you start looking at the Bible from a cultural perspective and a law book and a custom and historical, right? The historical context as well. But anyway, and also dealing with the ceremonies, right? For my people especially, my people spend more money doing these pagan holidays than anything. But just imagine if we would take that energy, take that time, take those resources for our own communities and also in worship of the Most High. Just imagine where we would be at. But we would do it, but we would rather do it nowadays in honor of pagan deities and things that are not of the Most High, and wonder why our communities look the way they look. Again, like I said, it's just, it only makes sense when you get out of your feelings, right? It only makes sense when you really get out of your feelings and be willing to be held accountable. The moral law, right? That should be self-explanatory, again, which would bring us back to our communities and how we worship and ceremonies and stuff like that, which, again, how we treat each other, how we treat our community. I don't even have to even go into detail and show you the natural and the spiritual connection with that. If I have to do that, then you just lost. It's just there's no help in you, right? There's no help for you. And then again, we have going back to the sacrificial law of the offering. Like I say, we don't sacrifice animals anymore. We don't do all these things like that. But we're supposed to be a living sacrifice. We're supposed to be an example, right? We're supposed to be not only an example for our household and our community, but we're supposed to be an example for the whole world, because the whole world is supposed to be looking at us and following us. That takes sacrifice. That takes dedication. You know what I'm saying? That take a certain mindset, a certain spirit that when the nations begin to see it, again, it not only exalts the Most High, but it also brings us closer to the Most High, right? Because at the end of the day, these things would follow this. Again, it just begin to line up even more so now. Not that, again, there's probably a lot of things that I've missed. There's things that could be added. Somebody may put it in a different, set the categories a little different. That's fine. But at the end of the day, we're trying to get the results to avoid the judgment, the punishment, right? The final ruling, right? Because the breach of every one of these things, we can begin to see how the final ruling is sin and how it affects us. That's why we as a nation, as a people, are where we're at right now. Again, which bring me to the last thought, as I was writing this down, was looking at the 5 principles of law. And people see this when they go to church. They see their pastor and the reverend or whomever, their bishop, put his hand on somebody and trying to cast out a spell or a demon or whatever. Again, they don't even realize where they got that from. The 5 principles of law. They're trying to pull this the spirit of this or whatever, this illness out of this person, because there's something within this that breached. They breached something in this, and this is why they are, again, they're sick, or they're going through financial difficulties, or whatever they're going through. Again, which brings us again to sin. We're supposed to be a holy people. Again, I'm far from perfect. I have a lot of growing to do. I have a lot of learning to do. But I show you that, the Most High did not create this to be hard or difficult or to judge us. It's a safeguard to protect us, even from our own selves, right? Not just dealing with the world, but to protect us from our own shortcomings, right? Anyway, family, this is what I see. You may not see that. That being said, as usual, peace, love. Shalom.